Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another session of our CISSP study group. I'm B-Dubs, and I couldn't be more excited to dive into today's material with you. Whether you're preparing for the CISSP exam or you're just really excited about cybersecurity, you're exactly where you need to be. In our previous session, we finished out Domain 2 with the last objective 2.6. If you weren't able to join us, no worries. I've created a playlist for you to catch up at your own pace. Let me drop that link in chat right now. We're making fantastic progress, and today we're diving into a really important topic, Domain 3, Security Architecture and Engineering. Specifically, we'll be focusing on exam objectives 3.1, Research, Implement, and Manage Engineering Processes Using Secure Design Principles, and 3.2, Understand the Fundamental Concepts of Security Models. This is where we start thinking like security architects, learning how to actually build secure systems from the ground up. Get ready, because this is where it all starts to get real. So let's start with the big picture, the why behind Domain 3. What is this all about? Well, it's about understanding the fundamental principles, the concepts, the structures, and the standards that we use to design, implement, monitor, and most importantly, secure all kinds of systems. We're talking about everything: operating systems, applications, networks, and even the physical hardware itself. And I really want to emphasize the word secure here. This domain isn't just about building systems. It's about building them securely. It's about protecting our data, preventing breaches, keeping the bad threats out, while also ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our information. Remember that CIA triad? The single most important takeaway from this entire domain is that security must be integrated from the very beginning. It's not something we can just sprinkle on top at the end like some kind of magic security dust. We, as security professionals, need to be involved in the entire engineering lifecycle, from the very first spark of an idea all the way through when the system is finally retired. This is what we call security by design. And trust me, it's not only the most effective way to do things, it's also the most cost-effective in the long run. So let's dive right into Objective 3.1, which is to research, implement, and manage engineering processes using secure design principles. While this might sound technical, it really comes down to something quite straightforward. Security needs to be woven into every single stage of building and maintaining any of our systems. From the moment we sketch out an idea on a whiteboard until the day we finally retire that system, security must be a primary consideration at every single step. Think about it like building your dream house. You wouldn't start putting up walls without a detailed blueprint, would you? And you certainly wouldn't wait until after the house is built to think about security, right? You'd want secure doors, strong locks, and maybe security cameras, and a solid alarm system, all planned out in your blueprints from day one. The digital world works exactly the same way. Security has to be baked into the initial design, the development process, the testing phase, the rollout, the daily operations, and even the eventual system retirement. At each step, we're asking ourselves, how do we make this as secure as possible? So let's explore what we mean by architecture. What comes to mind when you hear it? Probably buildings, blueprints, and maybe even network diagrams. Essentially, an architecture is a structure made up of many different components that all work together to achieve a specific purpose. And you'll need a complete blueprint that shows how everything fits together. In security, our architecture is the master plan that shows how all of our security components work together to protect our assets. Think about a laptop. It has hardware, like the motherboard, the processor, the hard drive. It has software, like the operating system and your applications. It has firmware, which helps the hardware and software communicate. And don't forget that you, the user, are part of that architecture whenever you're using the laptop. Each of these layers needs its own security controls. Now add the word security. Security architecture means ensuring that each of those components and the entire system as a whole is protected against threats and vulnerabilities. When we scale this up to enterprise security architecture, we're looking at something much bigger. Now we're protecting an entire organization's ecosystem. The people, processes, technology, data, and the networks. Everything needs to be working together seamlessly while staying secure. The million-dollar question is always, how much security is enough? And the answer, as always in security, is it depends. It depends on the value of what you're protecting compared to the potential impact if something goes wrong. And it needs to be cost-effective. We wouldn't spend thousands of dollars on a high-security vault door to protect a closet full of old newspapers, right? It's all about balancing the risk, cost, and usability. Let's explore the engineering process. This is how we transform an architectural vision into reality through a series of well-defined steps. Think of it like building a house, but for our digital systems. It's a life cycle, a series of steps that we follow, and it typically starts with a concept, a spark of an idea, identifying a need that needs to be met, or a problem we want to solve. Next comes the design phase. This is where we create detailed blueprints of our concepts, ideas, or solutions, followed by building and implementation. This is where we actually construct the system piece by piece. Throughout this process and before launch, we conduct thorough testing to ensure everything works as we intended. After the development, we enter the maintenance phase, keeping the system updated and secure. Finally, when the time comes, we properly dispose of the system in a secure manner. And I can't stress this enough. Security must be woven into every single phase of the lifecycle, and not just an afterthought. This is not optional, and it's definitely not something we can bolt on at the end. This is what we mean by security by design. It's like building that house with the locks already built into the doors, the alarm system is already pre-wired, and the security cameras are strategically placed. Instead of trying to add them after the walls are up, the paint is dry, and the furniture is moved in. It's always better, significantly cheaper, and far more effective to do it right from the very beginning. So let's talk more about choosing security controls. This is where the rubber meets the road in security design. Here's the thing, there's no magic formula or one-size-fits-all solution to designing secure systems. Every organization, every system, every situation is unique. Instead, we need to be strategic and methodical in our approach. We can leverage various security concepts, frameworks, and methodologies. The key is to start with a solid risk management process. First, we identify our crown jewels, those critical assets that absolutely must be protected. Then we assess the risk to those assets. Only then can we select the most appropriate and cost-effective security controls for those assets. Now, when you're building that house, you wouldn't put a bank vault on your garden shed, right? But you might want one for your safe room. It's all about matching the level of protection to the value of what you're protecting. And now for the fun part, our toolbox of secure design principles. These are the fundamental rules and the best practices that we follow to truly build secure systems. I'll walk you through each one. Start with threat modeling. This is like being a security detective before the crime even happens. We proactively identify potential threats and vulnerabilities, and then we figure out how to mitigate them. We're constantly asking the question, what could go wrong, and how do we stop it? A common methodology we might use here is STRIDE. Remember, this stands for spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. We use these 6 categories to brainstorm potential threats. Next up is least privilege. Users and processes should only have the absolute minimum access they need to do their jobs. No more and no less. This significantly limits the damage if something goes wrong, like a breach or an insider threat. It's like giving someone a key to a specific room instead of handing them the master key to the entire building. It makes sense, right? Now, defense in depth is fascinating. Think of this like layers of an onion. or multiple fences around a castle. Each layer is a different type of security control, so if one fails, the others are still in place to protect us. It's crucial that these are different types of controls: a firewall, an intrusion detection system, endpoint protection, strong authentication, and not just like multiple firewalls. And all of these controls are working together. When it comes to secure defaults, think about your home Wi-Fi router. Have you changed the default password when you set your router up? I really hope you did. That's exactly what we're talking about here. Systems should be secure right out of the box. We don't want systems to be easily compromised just because someone forgot to change a default setting. And then fail securely is really interesting. Systems break. That's just a fact of life. But when they do, they should fail in a way that doesn't compromise security. Imagine a power outage at a secure facility. Should the doors default to open or locked? Locked. Absolutely. We never want a failure to create a new vulnerability. Separation of duties is also important. It's like requiring 2 signatures on a large check, or separating the person who orders supplies from the person who approves the invoices. No single person should have complete control over critical processes. This prevents both fraud and honest mistakes. Now, one of my personal favorites is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Complexity is the enemy of security. The simpler a system is, the easier it is to understand, manage, and most importantly, secure. We want to avoid any unnecessary complexity whenever it's possible. More complexity just means more possible vulnerabilities. Zero trust is also huge, and it's increasingly important in today's world. We're moving away from trust but verify to never trust and always verify. We assume nothing is trusted, whether it's inside or outside of our network. Every user, every device, every connection, everything needs to be authenticated and authorized. No exceptions. Privacy by design is becoming increasingly important as well. We're not just adding privacy features later on as an afterthought. We're building them in from the ground up. We're thinking about protecting user data from the initial design phase. And we'll dive deeper into this one in just a moment. Shared responsibility is something I also want to emphasize. Security isn't just the security team's job. Every individual within an organization plays a role in maintaining security. With cloud environments becoming more common, shared responsibility becomes even more critical. We're all in this together, and we all have to play our parts. Finally, let's talk about SASE, or Secure Access Service Edge. It integrates network security functions with WAN capabilities to support dynamic, secure access needs, especially in cloud-centric environments. It essentially delivers security as a cloud service, rather than through traditional on-premises applications. Let's spend a little more time on Zero Trust, because it's so relevant in today's interconnected world. With the rise of cloud computing, remote work, and mobile devices, our traditional network perimeter has basically disappeared. We can't simply assume that anything inside our network is automatically safe. Now, here's the thing about Zero Trust. You can't just go out and buy it as a product. It's a complete mindset shift, a whole new way of thinking about security. So what does this really mean? First, we need strong authentication for literally everyone and everything. I'm talking about multi-factor authentication, or MFA. You know when you get that code on your phone? That's just the beginning. We also need strong passwords, solid identity management, and we need to verify every single device. Next up is something called microsegmentation. Picture your network like a ship with multiple watertight compartments. If one area gets breached, or with a ship, if one compartment floods, the others stay safe and dry. This is exactly what we're doing by breaking our network into smaller, isolated segments. This limits what we call the blast radius if one part of the network is compromised. Now, when it comes to access control, we're really getting granular. We're not just saying yes or no anymore. We're looking at who you are, where you're connecting from, and what kind of device you're using, how sensitive the data is. Everything here matters. We're enforcing the principle of least privilege within the context of zero trust. It's like having a very thorough security guard who not only checks multiple forms of ID, but then they move you to the interrogation room for questioning. But wait, there's even more. We're constantly monitoring for activity and re-authenticating users and devices as needed. Think of it like airport security. You don't just get checked once and then you're free to do whatever you want. We're continuously watching and always verifying. Let me give you a real-world example. This is like working in a high-security facility. Just because you made it through the front door doesn't mean you can just go anywhere you want. You still need to show your credentials at every checkpoint, scan your badge for every secure area, and prove that you belong there. That's zero trust in action. Now let's talk about privacy by design. This is another crucial concept in today's world, especially with regulations like GDPR and the CCPA. What we're talking about here is baking privacy right into your system from day one, and not just bolting it on as an afterthought. It's about making privacy a core, fundamental part of your system, and not just an add-on. There's 7 key principles here. First up is being proactive and not reactive. Think about it. We don't want to wait for privacy issues to happen and then scramble around to fix them. We want to anticipate these problems and prevent them before they even occur. It's like driving defensively. You're always looking several cars ahead for potential dangers. Next, we have privacy as the default setting. And this is huge. Your users shouldn't have to dig through complicated menus and fine print to protect their privacy. Strong privacy protection should be the standard, right out of the box. It's like when you buy a new car, the seatbelts are already installed. You don't have to go and buy seatbelts and add them in yourself later. The third principle is that privacy needs to be embedded into the design as an integral part of the system's architecture. We're not just bolting it on later, it's woven right into the system's DNA. It's part of the foundation and not just a decoration. Number 4 is what we call functionality. We strive for a win-win situation. Privacy should not come at the expense of usability or functionality. And strong privacy doesn't mean we have to sacrifice this usability. We can absolutely have both. It's not an either-or situation. And then we have end-to-end security. We're protecting our data through its entire lifecycle, from the moment it's created until it's finally disposed of. Like a secure mailbox, we're providing protection from pickup to delivery and everything in between. The next principle is visibility and transparency. Users deserve to know what is happening with their data, what's being collected, how it's being used, and who it's being shared with. No surprises, no hidden catches. It's all about being upfront and honest. And finally, we have respect for user privacy. We should always put the user privacy needs and interests first. We treat their data like we'd want our own data treated, with the utmost care and respect. These 7 principles aren't just theoretical. They're a practical guide to building systems that are both secure and privacy respecting. Keep these in mind as we move forward. Now let's dive into something really interesting, the cyber kill chain. This was originally developed by Lockheed Martin in 2011 and is a model that shows us exactly step-by-step how cyber attacks typically unfold. Think of it as getting your hands on your opponent's playbook. When you know their moves, you can defend against them much more effectively, and understanding these steps is incredibly helpful for building strong defenses. Let's walk through each of these stages. First up is reconnaissance, or recon. This is where attackers do their homework. They're gathering all the information they can about their target, scanning networks to identify systems, looking for vulnerabilities, identifying any potential entry points, and using social engineering. It's like they're casing the joint, just like in those heist movies. Next comes weaponization. At this stage, the attacker is crafting their tools. They might be developing a piece of malware or crafting a really convincing phishing email. whatever they think will work best based on what they learned during recon. Once the tool or exploit is ready, they move to delivery. This is where things start happening. The attacker actually launches their attack here. And maybe they send that phishing email, or maybe they exploit a vulnerability they found, or maybe they even use a compromised USB drive. There's so many possibilities here. Stage 4 is exploitation. This is where everything gets really serious. The attacker's code is actually running on the target system, taking advantage of a vulnerability. It's like they've picked the lock and gotten through the front door at this point. After that comes installation. The attacker isn't satisfied with just getting in. They want to make sure that they can come back anytime they want. They'll install persistent malware, maybe set up a backdoor, or establish what we call a RAT, a remote access Trojan. They're securing their foothold in the system. Stage 6 is command and control, or C2 for short. The attacker sets up their communication channels so that they can control the compromised system remotely and communicate with it. It's like they've installed their own personal remote control to the system. They can now send commands and receive data from the infected machine. And finally, we reach actions on objectives. This is where the attacker goes for their ultimate goal. Maybe they're stealing data, or maybe they're encrypting files for a ransom, or maybe they're just trying to disrupt operations. Whatever their objective is, this is where they're actually trying to achieve it. So why do we need to understand this chain of events? If we can break any link in this chain, we can stop the attack. It's a game of defense. We don't have to block every single move. We just need to disrupt their game plan at any point, and we can prevent a successful attack. For a defense in-depth approach, we want to focus our defenses to break the chain at multiple points in the cyber kill chain, keeping in mind that we only need one broken link in the chain to disrupt the full attack. Now let's shift gears and move on to objective 3.2, understanding the fundamental concepts of security models. Think of these models as the architectural blueprints for security. They're the foundation that everything else is built on. Just like an architect needs a solid plan for building a house, we need these models to build robust security systems. These models aren't just theoretical. They're practical frameworks that can help us implement real security policies. They give us the rules and structures we need to protect three critical aspects of security: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We're shifting from looking at the how of security principles to exploring the what of security models. In other words, moving from theory to practice. So, what is a security model anyway? Think of this as a blueprint or a roadmap for security. It's a formal way to describe how security would work in a system or organization. But here's the important part. It's not the actual security system itself. Instead, it's more like a detailed plan that shows us how to achieve our security goals of the CIA triad. These models help us turn abstract security concepts into real practical solutions that we can implement in our hardware and software. Many different security models exist, and some of them are surprisingly old, dating back to the 1970s. That being said, the fundamental principles that they represent are still incredibly relevant today. While technology keeps evolving rapidly, these fundamental security principles remain rock solid. Whether we're protecting mainframes from the 70s or cloud systems today, the core concepts of maintaining confidentiality and integrity have not changed. These models continue to provide the foundation for how we approach information security in modern systems. Now, before we jump into specific security models, let's talk about enterprise security architecture frameworks. These are like overarching guidelines or master plans for implementing security across an entire organization. They provide a structured approach or a roadmap for building secure enterprises from the ground up. I want to introduce you to three of the most important frameworks you'll encounter. First, we have the Zachman Framework. This framework focuses on answering the fundamental questions like who, what, where, when, why, and how. from the perspectives of different stakeholders within the organization. You've got your planners seeing it one way, owners seeing another way, and your designers and builders yet another way. And this is like getting everyone in a room and making sure they're all speaking the same language. Next up is SABSA, or the Sherwood Applied Business Security Architecture. This framework is all about risk management and business alignment. Instead of treating security as just a technical issue, SABSA helps you integrate it with your business objectives. It shows you how security can actually enable and support your business goals, not just protect it against threats. And it's all about making security a business enabler and not just a cost center. Finally, we have TOGAF, the Open Group Architecture Framework. This framework has a practical approach. It's designed to help you build efficient, cost-effective systems while maintaining flexibility. It gives you a common language and modular structure that everyone in your organization can understand and work with. Now let's get into the security models themselves. When we look at all the different security models out there, we can group them into two main categories: lattice-based and rule-based models. Understanding these categories will help us better grasp how each specific model works. First, let's talk about lattice-based models. Picture a lattice, or like a trellis in your garden or a ladder. These models work in layers, similar to how you climb up or down a ladder. Each layer represents a different security level, and access is controlled based on where you are in this hierarchy. The two most famous examples of this are the Bell-LaPadula and Biba. On the other hand, rule-based models take a different approach. Instead of using a strict hierarchy, these models work more like a rulebook. They define specific conditions and permissions that determine who can access what resources and how they can use them. Think of it like having a set of if-then statements that control access. Let's explore some examples of these models. We'll start with Bell-LaPadula, often called BLP. This model is all about confidentiality. It was originally developed for the US military, who really needed a rock-solid way to protect classified information. It's based on 3 fundamental rules, and understanding these rules is key. The first rule is the simple security property, or no read up. Think of this as a basic need-to-know principle enforced strictly. A subject, which could be a user or a process, cannot read information at a higher security level than their own clearance. Just like someone with a secret clearance can't access top secret files, a low-level user can't access high-level data. Then we have the star property, or no write down. A subject cannot write information to a lower security level. This prevents data leaks by stopping users from writing information to lower security levels. Someone with a top secret clearance can't write data to secret or unclassified levels, preventing both accidental and intentional information leaks. The strong star property combines both of these rules. A subject can only read and write at their exact security level. They can't read up and they can't write down. This creates perfect compartmentalization of information. While BLP is excellent for maintaining confidentiality in hierarchical systems, it's important to note that it doesn't address data integrity. For that critical aspect, we need to look at our next model. Biba is essentially the mirror image, the flip side of Bell-LaPadula. It focuses entirely on integrity, ensuring that data is accurate, reliable, and has not been tampered with, whether that's malicious or accidental. Its rules are designed to prevent data corruption. It's like having a quality control system that ensures data is accurate, reliable, and has not been tampered with. The first key rule, the simple integrity property, or no read down. A subject cannot read data at a lower integrity level, meaning you can't read information that's less trustworthy than your level. Why? Well, this prevents you from being influenced by unreliable or untrustworthy information. Imagine you're a financial analyst working with carefully verified reports. You wouldn't want to make a $1 million decision based on unverified rumors from social media, right? That's exactly what this rule prevents. The second rule is the star integrity property, or no write-up. This one's crucial. You can't modify information at a higher integrity level than yours. This prevents you from corrupting more trustworthy data with your potentially less reliable or unverified information. It's like saying if you're working on a draft report, you can't directly edit the final audited version. This prevents less reliable information from contaminating our more trustworthy data. And finally, we have the invocation property. Think of this as a communication rule. You can't send information to someone working at a higher integrity level than yours. It's another way of maintaining that wall between different levels of data quality. When you put it all together, Biba creates this protective system that keeps our high-quality verified data from being contaminated by less reliable information. It's like having a one-way filter that only allows clean data to flow in the right direction. So what if your organization needs to protect both confidentiality and integrity? Enter the Lipner implementation. While not technically a standalone security model, it's a clever way of combining Bell-LaPadula and Biba to get the best of both worlds. Think of it as a security power couple. Lipner takes the best parts of both models so that BLP can handle the confidentiality rules, while Biba can take care of that integrity. The genius of Lipner is that it enforces both sets of rules simultaneously. When someone tries to access or modify data, they have to satisfy both BLP's no read up, no write down rules and Biba's integrity rules. While this makes it more complex to implement, and yes, it can be quite challenging in practice, it does provide a comprehensive approach to security that many organizations need. It is important to call out that Lipner is not a security model, but it's simply an implementation of two security models. And now that we've covered Bell-LaPadula and Biba with their hierarchical structures, remember that these are lattice-based models. Let's explore models that take a different approach. These rule-based models focus on specific conditions and permissions, rather than strict security levels. First up are information flow models. These models are all about tracking the flow of information through a system. These are fascinating because they actually form the foundation for both Bell-LaPadula and Biba. A key goal of these models is to identify and prevent covert channels, which are unintended communication pathways that can leak sensitive data. They're like hidden tunnels that bypass security controls. There's two types of these covert channels: storage channels that leak data through shared resources, and timing channels that leak data through variations in system response times. Now let's talk about the Clark-Wilson model. While Biba handles basic integrity, Clark-Wilson takes it to the next level with three core principles. First, it stops unauthorized users from making any changes. This is what Biba does. Second, it prevents authorized users from making improper or unauthorized changes. This could be any mistakes, fraud, or even those insider threats we worry about. Third, it ensures everything stays consistent, both internally and externally, making sure the data in the system accurately reflects the real world and that transactions are processed correctly. Clark-Wilson achieves these goals through three powerful mechanisms. Well-formed transactions, which means ensuring that all data is valid, consistent, and processed correctly, according to predefined rules. We're only performing operations in a way that won't compromise the integrity of the data. Separation of duties. Remember this one? It's about splitting up critical tasks among different individuals to prevent any single person from having too much power, reducing fraud and errors. And then there's access triple. This is where Clark-Wilson really shines. Picture like a security checkpoint where you need three things: who you are, the subject, what you're using, the program, and what you're trying to access, the object. A subject cannot directly access an object. You can't skip the checkpoint. That program in the middle is your security guard. And you must go through a specific program that enforces the access rules and ensures that the transaction is valid. This program in the middle is your security guard, and it adds a crucial layer of control and auditing. Let's move on to the Brewer-Nash model, also known as the Chinese wall. This model is designed specifically to prevent any conflicts of interest. It dynamically adjusts access controls based on what a user has already accessed. Perfect for consulting firms or banks where you don't want the same person working with competing clients. Access one client's data and boom, you're automatically blocked from their competitors' information. It's like having an invisible fence that moves with you. The Take Grant model uses a clever graph system to show how access rights move around. It's all about 4 basic actions. Take, getting rights. Grant is giving rights. Create is making new things. And revoke is taking those rights away. It's particularly focused on keeping information confidential and how access rights are managed dynamically. Next up is the Goguen-Meseguer Model. This one's all about keeping different security domains from interfering with each other, like keeping the kids' sandbox separate from the vegetable garden. It ensures that actions in one security domain don't affect or interfere with other security domains. This helps to maintain isolation and prevent unintended consequences. The Sutherland model is similar to Goguen-Meseguer, but specifically focused on maintaining integrity by preventing interference between systems. These models are more theoretical, but important for understanding the foundations of secure system design. Graham-Denning, while a lesser-known security model, lays out the ground rules for subjects to securely access an object. The Harrison-Ruzzo-Ullman model, or HRU, builds on Graham-Denning. It's more theoretical, diving into access rights and system resilience. And finally, we have the STAR model. While it's informal, it helps us visualize how using an asterisk can dictate read and write permissions across various levels of confidentiality. Before we wrap up, let's talk about 2 very important and often intertwined concepts: certification and accreditation. These are crucial for ensuring that the security solutions we implement, the systems and products we use, actually work as advertised and meet our specific security needs. First up is certification. This is the technical evaluation of a system or product. It's like getting a certified mechanic to inspect a used car before you buy it. They check the engine, the brakes, the transmission, everything to make sure it's in good working order. A qualified independent third party examines every aspect of a system or product. They're checking under the hood, testing all the components, and making sure everything meets the specified security requirements. They document everything, verify functionality, and produce a detailed report of their findings. Then we have accreditation. This is where management steps in and makes the official decision. After reviewing the certification results, they decide whether to approve the system for use. Think of this as your organization's seal of approval, saying, yes, we understand what this system can and can't do, and we accept any remaining risk, or the residual risk, and we're confident it meets our needs. This is typically a senior level decision, because they're the ones with the authority to accept those residual risks on behalf of the organization. So how do we measure this security? Let me tell you about something really important in our field: how we actually measure and evaluate security. Think of this like a report card for security products. We have these evaluation systems that help us figure out just how secure different products really are. These evaluation criteria give us a common language and framework to compare different security solutions. It's like having a standardized test. It removes any marketing bias and helps organizations make smart choices about what to buy and helps them trust what vendors are claiming about their products. Let's look at a few of the key evaluation criteria systems. First, we have Trusted Computer System Evaluation Criteria, or TCSEC, which is also known as the Orange Book. The Department of Defense created this back in the 1980s, and yes, they actually called it the Orange Book because it had an orange cover. It was part of this whole rainbow series of security books. Now, while it's a bit old school, it mainly focuses on keeping things confidential. It laid the groundwork for everything that came after. And it's still a valuable resource for understanding confidentiality principles. Then came ITSEC from our European friends. They looked at TCSEC and thought, hey, we can make this better. They expanded it to look at two key things: what a product does, or its functionality, and how well it does it, which is its assurance. This was a big step forward. And finally, we have what's now the industry standard, the Common Criteria. This is recognized internationally with the ISO 15408 standard and gives us the most comprehensive way to evaluate security products. When someone says their product is Common Criteria certified, that really means something. So let's dive a bit deeper into the Common Criteria because it's so prevalent and important. It's called Common Criteria because several countries collaborated to create a common, internationally recognized standard. This means that if a product is evaluated in, say, Germany, that evaluation is trusted by organizations in the US, Canada, the UK, and other participating countries. It provides a level of trust and consistency across borders. The Common Criteria uses several key components. First, we have what's called a protection profile, or PP. Think of this as a security wish list for different types of products. Want a firewall? There's a PP for that. Need an operating system, or IDS? There's a PP for those too. The PP outlines the expected security functionality and assurance levels for that type of product. It's basically a detailed template or checklist of what security features we can expect from each type of product. Next is the target of evaluation, or TOE. This one's simple. It's just the product being tested. If we're evaluating a firewall, then that firewall is our TOE. Finally, we have security targets, or ST. This is where the vendor steps in and says, here's how our product meets all those security requirements in the PP. It's like their security promise, backed up by evidence. The Common Criteria evaluation process rigorously tests the product against the security targets and that protection profile, examining both its functional capabilities, what it does, and its assurance level, how well it does it, and how confident we are in its security. It's an independent, objective assessment. It's also important to note that this evaluation process is expensive and time-consuming. This helps explain why not all products are evaluated, and why vendors often choose to evaluate only their flagship products or those specifically targeted at security-focused markets. After the evaluation, the product is assigned an Evaluation Assurance Level, or EAL, ranging from 1 to 7. The higher the EAL, the more rigorous and thorough the evaluation was, and the greater the assurance that the product meets its security claims. Here's a quick rundown of the EAL levels. EAL 1 is your basic testing level. We're just checking if the security features work as advertised. EAL 2 digs a bit deeper. We start looking at how the product is designed and structured. EAL 3 is a more systematic and methodical approach to testing. There's more documentation and review involved. EAL 4 is what you'll see most often in commercial products. It hits that sweet spot between good security and practicality. It shows that the vendor has followed a methodical design process and has performed thorough testing and independent review. EAL 5 starts getting into the heavy-duty stuff with more formal methods. We're talking mathematical models and rigorous analysis in the design and testing process. EAL 6 takes it up another notch, with even more rigorous verification methods. EAL 7 is the top tier. We're talking formal mathematical proofs and extremely rigorous testing. This level is usually reserved for systems handling really sensitive stuff, like national security or critical infrastructure. Now, it's crucially important to understand that a higher EAL doesn't always mean better for your needs. An EAL 7 product might be extremely secure, but it could also be incredibly complex, difficult to manage, and extremely expensive. Think of it like buying a car. You might not need a tank-like military vehicle for your daily commute. There's often a trade-off between security, usability, and cost. Most organizations find that EAL4 provides a good balance for commercial products. It represents a strong level of assurance without excessive complexity or cost. And one last thing, when a product gets an EAL rating, it keeps that rating until there's a big change in how it works, like a major redesign or new features. Small updates and patches usually don't require going through the whole evaluation process again, though some vendors might do a limited reevaluation just to maintain confidence in their security. Alright everyone, let's recap what we've covered in today's session on secure design and security models. We've discussed 3 fundamental areas that are absolutely crucial for secure system design. First and foremost, we talked about security models and design principles. We learned that security isn't something you bolt on at the end. It needs to be woven into the fabric of your system from day one. We saw how different security models each serve a specific purpose, whether that's protecting confidentiality, maintaining integrity, or managing access control. Then there was system evaluation. We explored how certification is your technical verification, making sure all those security requirements are actually being met. Then we looked at accreditation, where management steps in to give that official stamp of approval. And finally, we talked about the common criteria. We discussed how this gives a standardized way to evaluate security across different products and systems. And we broke down those EAL levels, helping us understand just how rigorous the evaluation process is. And before we wrap up, I want to emphasize something important. Security architecture isn't just about checking boxes and implementing controls. It's about building security into every layer of your systems from the ground up. Take some time to review these concepts. They're the building blocks for everything else we'll discuss in this domain. And that concludes our deep dive into exam objectives 3.1 and 3.2. Don't worry if you need to revisit any concepts. These recordings stay up on YouTube, and I add chapters after the live stream to help you find specific topics. Remember, mastering these concepts is just one milestone on your CISSP journey. You'll see these ideas pop up again as we explore other domains. The key is understanding how they apply in real-world scenarios, especially from that management perspective. Stay curious and keep practicing. You're doing great. Are you ready to start the after party? I'll be moving this conversation over to our Study GRC Discord server's CISSP voice channel. It's a fantastic place to ask questions, share your insights, and connect with others on this journey with you. If you haven't joined the Discord community yet, head over to cissp.britwhite.io to grab the link. Make sure to pick up your CISSP role when you join. It'll give you access to all of our dedicated study group channels. Our next session will be on Saturday, April 5th at 3 p.m. Central US time, and we'll continue exploring security architecture and engineering. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Discord.